A barefoot woman collapsed on Highway 378, her body trembling against the cold South Carolina asphalt. No identification, no memory of how she got there, but clutched in her dirt-stained fingers was a faded photograph. Two black teenage girls in school uniforms, their smiles frozen in time. When the nurse at Sumter Regional Hospital asked for her name, the woman's cracked lips whispered just one word, Janelle. Then, staring at the ceiling with hollow eyes that had seen too much, she spoke the sentence that would shatter a mother's 20-year vigil. She didn't make it out. If you are new to this channel, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, like this video and comment where you are watching from. 15-year-old twins Janelle and Jalisa Morgan moved through Augusta, Georgia like two halves of the same soul. Their footsteps synchronized on cracked sidewalks that told stories of a neighborhood fighting to survive. In the rough corners of Jennings' homes, where broken streetlights cast long shadows and sirens were the neighborhood lullaby, where corner stores sold single cigarettes through bulletproof glass and children learned to duck at the sound of backfire. The sisters had learned early that survival meant sticking together. The housing complex where they lived was a maze of brick buildings that had seen better decades, their red facades now weathered to the color of dried blood. Windows were patched with duct tape and cardboard, and the playground equipment bore rust stains like old wounds. But within these walls lived families who looked out for each other, grandmothers who called every child baby, regardless of relation, and mothers who worked 3 jobs to keep food on the table and hope alive in their children's hearts. Janelle and Jalisa weren't identical twins, but their bond was. To look at them was to see 2 different expressions of the same spirit. Janelle with her careful eyes that seemed to catalog every danger before it arrived, and Jalisa with her chin tilted up toward possibilities that others couldn't see. Janelle was the one who checked twice that the front door was locked, who reminded her sister to take her inhaler, who saved her lunch money in case they needed bus fare home. Jalisa was the one who made friends with stray cats, who convinced teachers to extend deadlines, who could talk her way into free samples at the ice cream truck with nothing but a smile and a well-timed compliment. They had developed their own language over the years, a combination of looks, gestures, and half-finished sentences that no one else could decode. Janelle would tilt her head slightly to the left when she sensed trouble approaching, and Jalisa would immediately scan for the nearest exit. Jalisa would tap twice on any surface when she wanted to leave a place, and Janelle would find a polite way to extract them both. They shared everything. Clothes, homework answers, the last bite of whatever dinner their mother had managed to stretch into 3 portions, and dreams whispered in the dark of their tiny shared bedroom. That bedroom was barely large enough for their twin mattress, which squeaked with every movement and had a permanent dent in the middle where their bodies naturally gravitated toward each other in sleep. The walls were covered with pictures torn from magazines, images of places they wanted to visit, colleges they hoped to attend, and families that looked happy and whole. Jalisa had covered her side with bright colors and inspirational quotes written in purple marker. Janelle's side was more organized, with a carefully maintained calendar marking important dates and a small shelf holding their shared collection of library books. They took turns reading aloud to each other every night, voices barely above a whisper so they wouldn't wake their mother, who worked 16-hour days and deserved whatever rest she could steal. Sometimes they would trade dreams, literally. "I dreamed I was flying over the ocean," Jalisa might say, and Janelle would nod seriously and reply, "I'll dream that tomorrow night, and I'll tell you what the water looked like." It was their way of ensuring that even their subconscious experiences belonged to both of them. Their mother, Vanessa Morgan, was a force of nature compressed into a 5'4" frame that carried the weight of raising 2 daughters alone. She worked double shifts at Magnolia Ridge Nursing Home, her scrubs perpetually smelling of industrial disinfectant, and the cocoa butter lotion she rubbed on elderly hands with infinite patience. Her own hands were permanently dry from constant washing, her feet perpetually sore from standing on linoleum floors for hours at a time, but her love for her daughters was the kind that could move mountains or at least make miracles happen on a minimum wage budget. Vanessa had been 19 when the twins were born, barely more than a child herself, but she had looked at those 2 tiny faces and made a vow that they would have better than she'd had. She saved every penny for school supplies, mended their clothes with stitches so precise they were nearly invisible, and created Christmas mornings out of layaway payments and overtime shifts. She attended every parent-teacher conference, every school play, every award ceremony, often still in her work scrubs because she had come straight from her shift. She raised her girls with one unbreakable rule, repeated so often it had become a family mantra. Where you see one, you see both. This wasn't just about safety, though in their neighborhood safety was always a concern. It was about identity, about the understanding that they were stronger together than apart, that their bond was their superpower in a world that often tried to divide and conquer. The rule applied to everything. If Janelle got invited to a birthday party, Jaleesa came too, or neither went. If Jaleesa wanted to join the school choir, Janelle had to agree to participate in some way, even if it was just helping with costumes. They did their homework together, shared their allowance, and made decisions as a unit. Other kids sometimes found it strange, this inability to be separate, but for the Morgan twins, it wasn't a limitation, it was liberation. They never had to face anything alone. In a neighborhood where children grew up too fast, where 10-year-olds knew the sound of different caliber gunshots, where 12-year-olds carried house keys on strings around their necks because both parents worked nights, where 14-year-olds became surrogate parents to younger siblings, Janelle and Jaleesa had managed to preserve something precious. They still giggled over inside jokes, still made up elaborate fantasy games during summer afternoons, still believed in the power of wishes made on fallen eyelashes. They were each other's constant companion, protector, cheerleader, and best friend. In a world that seemed designed to break spirits and crush dreams, they had managed to stay whole by sharing the load between two hearts, two minds, two souls that beat in perfect synchronization. When Jaleesa laughed, Janelle's eyes crinkled with shared joy. When Janelle worried, Jaleesa's optimism doubled to compensate. They were yin and yang, salt and pepper, two notes that created harmony when played together. Separately, they were remarkable girls with potential and promise. Together, they were invincible. At least, that's what they believed on March 17, 2004, as they fell asleep in their squeaky twin bed, whispering about plans for the weekend and unaware that they had fewer than 18 hours left of the only life they had ever known. In a neighborhood where children learned early that tomorrow wasn't guaranteed, Janelle and Jaleesa had each other. That was everything, and soon it would be all that remained. March 18, 2004, started like any other Thursday. The twins left Murphy Middle School with their usual routine, cut through Olive Road, walk down 12th Street, and head to their cousin Tasha's apartment. Tasha had cable television and frozen pizza, and the girls were obsessed with 106 in Park. They stayed longer than they should have, watching music videos as the sun painted the sidewalks amber. When it was time to leave, they made a quick stop at their older sister Nia's apartment, just a few doors down. "Can you walk us back to Jennings?" Jaleesa asked, bouncing on her toes. Nia looked up from braiding her baby's hair. "I can't right now, girls. Y'all know the way." They asked their cousin Tasha instead, but she was too tired. The twins shrugged it off. They'd walked this route 100 times. Less than a mile. They knew every crack in the sidewalk, every shortcut, every friendly face. Their last stop was the pump and shop gas station on 12th Street. The man behind the counter knew them by name. Jaleesa grabbed a bag of hot fries. Janelle picked up a grape soda. They paid in crumpled singles and left with a polite thank you. Security footage later showed them exiting the store at 6:42 p.m. Two girls walking into the growing dusk, completely unaware that their childhood was about to end. The white Ford sedan appeared in the pump and shop parking lot like a predator materializing from shadows. Its timing so precise it seemed choreographed. Later, investigators would study the security footage frame by frame, measuring distances and calculating angles, trying to understand how a single moment could pivot between ordinary and catastrophic with such devastating efficiency. The car was unremarkable in every way. A standard four-door sedan, maybe 10 years old, with the kind of wear that suggested daily use but not neglect. Its paint had faded from pure white to the color of old bones, and there was a small dent in the rear bumper that would become a crucial identifying detail when the vehicle was eventually discovered. But on that Thursday evening, it was just another car in a gas station parking lot, invisible in its ordinariness. The twins had been walking for less than 2 minutes when the sedan pulled in behind them, its engine running with the steady purr of routine maintenance. The driver had clearly been waiting, watching, timing the approach with the patience of someone who had done this before. Security footage would later show that the car had been parked across the street from the gas station for at least 20 minutes before the girls emerged, hidden behind a delivery truck in a position that offered perfect surveillance while remaining invisible to casual observation. Janelle noticed the car first. Her paranoid streak, inherited from a mother who had taught her daughters that awareness was a form of love, made her automatically catalog every vehicle that came too close or lingered too long. She touched Jalisa's arm, a gesture so subtle it was almost invisible. Their established signal for pay attention, something might be wrong. Jalisa's laughter died in her throat as she followed her sister's gaze to the sedan that had rolled to a stop just ahead of them. The passenger window slid down with the mechanical precision of a trap being set. Inside, barely visible in the gathering dusk, was a figure they both recognized. A face from their past. Someone who belonged to the category of adults that children were taught to trust. Neighbors, family friends, people who had earned their place in the community through years of small kindnesses and reliable presence. Raymond Pike had been part of their world for as long as they could remember, though he had disappeared from their daily lives when they were 7 years old. He was the man who used to help their mother carry groceries up 2 flights of stairs when her back was acting up. The man who had given them popsicles during the summer heat waves, cherry for Jalisa and grape for Janelle, because he had remembered their preferences from one visit to the next. He was the one who had driven their mother to prenatal appointments when the twins were babies and she couldn't afford cab fare, who had shown up with a bag of secondhand toys when they were too young to question where generosity came from. Pike had been woven into the fabric of their early childhood, present at birthday parties and holiday gatherings, always polite, always helpful, always offering assistance that seemed to come from genuine kindness. When he had suddenly moved away in 1998, Vanessa had mentioned that he was relocating to Florida for work, and the twins had been sad to see him go but not surprised. In their world, people came and went with the unpredictability of economic necessity. Adults disappeared and reappeared based on job opportunities, family crises, and forces beyond anyone's control. Now he was back, and his presence felt both familiar and strange, like a melody played in the wrong key. The twins looked at each other with that telepathic communication they had perfected over 15 years of shared existence. Jalisa's expression said, "Do we know him well enough to accept a ride?" Janelle's reply was a slight tilt of her head that meant, "Mama always said to be careful, but he's not a stranger." They had been trained to fear strangers, but Pike wasn't a stranger. He was someone who had been approved by their mother, who had been welcomed into their home, who had demonstrated trustworthiness through years of small but consistent acts of neighborly kindness. The very qualities that made him safe in their remembered past made him dangerous in their present. But they had no way of knowing that the intervening 6 years had changed him in ways that would have horrified the people who had once welcomed him into their community. The girls hesitated for maybe 30 seconds, long enough for anyone watching to see their internal debate play out in body language and facial expressions. Jalisa, always the bolder of the two, took a step toward the car. Janelle followed because the rule of their entire existence was that they moved as one unit, and because the alternative, letting her sister approach alone, was unthinkable. "Mr. Pike." Jalisa's voice carried the slight upward inflection of a question, as if she couldn't quite believe he was real, as if she was checking her own memory against the evidence of her eyes. "Hey there, girls." His voice was exactly as they remembered, warm, friendly, with the kind of drawl that suggested roots in the South that ran deeper than memory. "Look how much you've grown. I almost didn't recognize you." He smiled, and it was the same smile they remembered from childhood, the expression that had convinced their mother to trust him with her daughter's safety during grocery store trips and medical appointments. There was nothing obviously threatening about him, nothing that triggered the alarm bells they had been taught to recognize. He looked older, perhaps a little thinner, but essentially unchanged from the man who had been part of their extended community for the first 7 years of their lives. "Your mama know you're walking home this late?" he asked, and there was genuine concern in his voice, the same tone he had used when they were children and he had worried about their safety. "It's getting dark, and this neighborhood's not as safe as it used to be." It was exactly the right thing to say, a statement that demonstrated his continued care for their well-being and his familiarity with their family dynamics. Their mother did worry about them walking alone after dark. She had told them countless times to be home before the streetlights came on, to stick to well-lit areas, to trust their instincts if anything felt wrong. "We're okay," Janelle said, but her voice lacked conviction. The truth was that it was getting dark, and they were still at least 20 minutes away from home on foot, and the route they needed to take included several stretches of poorly lit street that made them both nervous. "Come on, let me give you a ride," Pike said, and his offer sounded like the most natural thing in the world. "I'm heading that direction anyway, and your mama would kill me if she knew I let you walk home alone in the dark." The mention of their mother was the final piece of the puzzle, the detail that transformed his offer from potentially dangerous to obviously sensible. This was someone who had known their family, who had been trusted by Vanessa, who was offering help out of genuine concern for their safety. Jaleesa leaned in to talk to the driver more directly, her face visible in the window as she probably asked where he had been for the past 6 years and what had brought him back to Augusta. Janelle stood close beside her sister, her back to the security camera that was recording their final moments of freedom. Her posture relaxed in a way that would later break her mother's heart because it showed how completely unafraid she was. After a brief conversation, maybe 90 seconds of exchanges too quiet to be picked up by the store's audio equipment, the back door opened with a soft click that sounded like the closing of a book, the end of one chapter and the beginning of something else entirely. They got in. Not because they were forced, not because they were threatened, but because every piece of evidence available to them suggested that this was a safe choice made by someone who cared about their well-being. They climbed into the back seat of the sedan like they had done dozens of times before, when Pike had been a trusted member of their extended community, when accepting rides from him had been not just acceptable but expected. The sedan pulled away from the pump and shop parking lot with calm deliberation, no squealing tires or rapid acceleration that might have drawn attention. From the perspective of anyone watching, it looked like exactly what Pike wanted it to look like. A family friend offering a ride to two girls who needed to get home safely. The security camera recorded their departure at 6:51 p.m., 9 minutes after they had exited the store. In those 9 minutes, the entire trajectory of their lives had changed, though they wouldn't understand the magnitude of that change for hours, days, perhaps years to come. As the white Ford sedan disappeared into the Augusta twilight, carrying its precious and unwitting cargo toward a destination known only to its driver, the pump and shop parking lot returned to its normal rhythm of customers coming and going, completely unaware that they had just witnessed the last moments of the Morgan twins' childhood. The security footage would be discovered 2 days later, too late to help but soon enough to haunt everyone who watched it, because it captured the exact moment when trust became betrayal, when safety became danger, and when two girls walking home became two girls who would never make it there. Vanessa Morgan returned from her shift at 7:30 p.m., her feet aching and her mind already planning dinner. She expected to find the twins watching cartoons or arguing over who left the bathroom light on. Instead, the apartment was silent. The beds were untouched. The air was too still. At first, she thought they were just running late, maybe caught up in another episode at Nia's. But when she called and learned the girls had already left, something cold twisted in her chest. She started calling around cousins, friends, the school. No one had seen them. By 9 p.m., Vanessa was walking their entire route herself, scanning every sidewalk, every alley, calling their names into the night. Neighbors watched from their porches, some concerned, others just tired of hearing about trouble. At 10 p.m., she found herself in front of the Richmond County Sheriff's Department, her hands shaking as she filled out a missing persons report. The officer at the front desk, young, white, with a buzz cut and a clipboard, scribbled while she talked. 15-year-old girls. Twins. Last seen at the gas station. No history of running away. Straight students who didn't go places without permission. They're probably just blowing off steam, he said, barely looking up. Teenagers do that. They're not like that, Vanessa replied, her voice cracking. My girls don't run. We'll keep an eye out, he said, already moving on to the next call. Vanessa left the station feeling like no one was coming to help. 2 days after the twins vanished, Hunter Lester Caldwell was walking a wooded trail past the edge of Richmond County. The area was mostly forgotten, overgrown with kudzu and used more by deer than people. In a clearing near a forgotten dirt road, he spotted something that didn't belong. A white Ford sedan, parked still and almost perfectly camouflaged by time and brush. The car doors were unlocked. The interior smelled stale, like damp clothes and rust. The keys were still in the ignition. In the back seat sat 2 school backpacks, one pink, one navy. Inside the pink bag was a spiral notebook with Janelle Morgan written in blocky handwriting. The navy bag held a worn denim jacket and a Hello Kitty pencil case. In the cup holder was an open bottle of grape soda, half full. The hunter stepped back, heart pounding, and called the police. The white Ford was traced to Raymond Pike, a former neighbor who had helped Vanessa with rides to clinic appointments when the girls were little. He'd left Augusta suddenly in 1998 with no explanation. But Pike was nowhere to be found. The discovery of Pike's abandoned car should have triggered an immediate, massive search. Instead, it revealed the ugly truth about which missing children matter. No Amber Alert was issued. The department cited jurisdictional issues, delays in locating the vehicle, lack of confirmed abduction. It's policy, they said, not neglect. But Vanessa knew better. Her daughters were Black, from public housing, raised by a single mother. The moment she'd walked through those doors 2 days earlier, they hadn't seen a case. They'd seen a statistic. Detective Celeste Ward, still in her early years with the department, remembered how the case shifted overnight. One day it was a low-priority missing persons file. The next, it was something colder, something that proved the girls hadn't left on their own. Volunteers canvassed neighborhoods, knocked on doors, scoured the woods where the car was found. A few vague leads trickled in. Someone thought they'd seen a similar car. Another claimed to have spotted the girls in a different part of town. None of the leads went anywhere. The bags were dusted for prints. None matched anyone outside the household. The grape soda bottle had partial prints, but they were smudged. Detectives couldn't determine if the girls had been forced into the car or had gotten in willingly. Media interest faded quickly. By the 3rd week, most flyers had peeled from telephone poles or been washed away by spring rain. By March 2005, 1 year after the twins disappeared, Vanessa stood alone outside the sheriff's office, holding a candle in a plastic cup. No cameras, no press, just her. She lit 2 candles and placed them on the concrete steps. One for Janelle, one for Jalisa. When the wind blew them out, she lit them again and again, until someone inside told her to leave. That same month, the Richmond County Sheriff's Department quietly closed the case, marking the status as inactive due to lack of evidence. A clerical decision that Vanessa wouldn't learn about for months. When she found out, she marched to the front desk and asked if it was true. The officer on duty gave her a tired look. It wasn't personal. We just don't have anything else to go on. You never looked hard enough, Vanessa replied. He didn't respond. Detective Ward hadn't stopped thinking about the twins. She kept copies of their missing posters pinned to her cubicle wall, filed quiet requests for federal help, searched through cold case databases. But without witnesses, without Pike, without bodies, there wasn't much she could legally do. The Morgan twins were becoming ghosts. Time moved differently in the Morgan home. Vanessa kept the girls' room exactly as it had been. Twin beds with cartoon sheets, school papers still tacked to the wall, shoes lined up neatly beneath the window. She made their favorite dinner every Thursday. Baked chicken with boxed mac and cheese and king peaches on the side. She left the porch light on every night, a beacon for daughters who might find their way home in the dark. The city moved on without them. New developments rose across downtown. Buildings were torn down, renamed, renovated. A generation grew up not knowing who Janelle and Jalisa Morgan were. But mothers don't forget. Every March 18th, Vanessa held a vigil. At first, dozens came. Then a few. Eventually, just her. Standing outside the pump and shop with 2 candles and faded photographs, whispering her daughters' names like a prayer. She wore their jewelry every day. Janelle's tiny planet charm and Jalisa's small gold cross. She would wear both until the day they came home. Detective Ward, even after retirement, kept the case file on her desk. Some nights, she'd find herself staring at those school photos, wondering if somewhere out there, 2 women were still fighting to come home. March 18, 2024. 20 years to the day. For the first time in 2 decades, Vanessa didn't bake a cake or light candles. She sat at her kitchen table with the lights off, hands folded, waiting for coffee to finish dripping. This year, silence felt heavier than hope. Then the phone rang. A South Carolina number she didn't recognize. "Is this Vanessa Morgan?" "Yes. I believe we have your daughter." Vanessa dropped the phone. A woman had been found walking barefoot along Highway 378 outside Sumter, South Carolina. No phone, no wallet, just a folded photograph in her pocket. Water-stained and faded, showing 2 black teenage girls in school uniforms. When asked her name, she'd said one word, Janelle. The nurse at Sumter Regional Hospital had noticed the photo and the resemblance. A quick internet search had led to old missing persons reports, and then to a mother who had never stopped waiting. Vanessa drove white-knuckled across state lines, her niece beside her, her heart hammering against her ribs so hard she thought it might crack. She didn't know what she was about to walk into. At the hospital, a doctor spoke softly. "She's extremely malnourished. We're running blood panels and trauma assessments. Mentally she's alert, but she's been through something we don't fully understand yet." Vanessa barely heard the words. She pushed the door open before the doctor could finish. The woman in the hospital bed looked nothing like her baby girl, but it was her. Janelle was thin, too thin. Her face was hollow, her hair short and uneven like it had been cut without care. Her skin was dry, lips cracked, knuckles bruised, but her eyes were the same. The moment Janelle looked up, her lip trembled. "Mama!" Vanessa collapsed into the chair beside the bed and touched Janelle's hand like she was touching a ghost. Janelle squeezed weakly, afraid her mother might disappear if she didn't hold on. That first day, she said almost nothing. She slept, stared at the ceiling, let nurses tend to her. When they asked what had happened, she turned away. But on the second day, when a nurse brought oatmeal and orange juice and sat quietly by her side, Janelle spoke without being asked. She didn't make it out. The story came out in fragments, in whispers, in drawings and nightmares. Trauma specialist Dr. Sarah Chun helped Janelle sort memory from silence, truth from survival. After the ride from the pump and shop, they hadn't been taken far. The house was outside Augusta, somewhere deep in the woods past a narrow dirt road. It looked normal on the outside, but the inside was hollow. No furniture in the living room, no fridge in the kitchen, and a basement door padlocked from the outside. That's where they were kept. A single mattress on the floor, a bucket, a small table with a buzzing lamp. Pike didn't speak much. He came down with food, cans of beans, crackers, juice boxes. He never let them out at the same time. He watched them always, from the top of the stairs. Jalisa never stopped planning. She whispered escape routes, counted days, traced maps on the concrete wall with her finger. "We're going to get out," she told Janelle. "We just need to wait for the right moment." One night, the lock jammed. Pike struggled with it, and the door creaked open for just a second too long. Jalisa ran. Janelle was too afraid. She didn't move. She heard footsteps above, a struggle, a slam, a scream, then nothing. When Pike came back, he was covered in mud and breathing hard. He stared at Janelle like she'd made the mistake. The next morning, she was moved. "Jalisa is gone," he told her. She asked what that meant. "You don't want to know." She never saw her sister again. Detective Celeste Ward, pulled out of retirement by the case that had haunted her for 20 years, worked with the FBI to track Pike's aliases and off-the-grid existence. The break came when fingerprints from the original Ford sedan matched a recent construction contract application in Florida. Raymond Pike, living as Harold Simmons in Panama City, didn't run when they knocked on his door. He just stood there with strange blankness in his eyes. Inside his home, they found a box of souvenirs. Receipts, keys, a children's necklace with a planet charm, newspaper clippings from the early coverage of the missing girls. Pike was charged with kidnapping, false imprisonment, and obstruction of justice. Without a body, they couldn't charge him with murder, but the evidence was overwhelming. The trial brought media attention the case had never received 20 years earlier. Cameras crowded the courthouse steps. Reporters who had never covered the original disappearance stood before murals they didn't know existed. Janelle testified behind closed doors. She spoke slowly, not for drama, but because her words had been buried so long it took effort to dig them out. When she spoke Jalisa's name, her voice cracked, but she didn't stop. Pike's attorney attempted psychiatric review, claimed memory gaps, claimed mistaken identity. But DNA, fingerprints, physical evidence, and Janelle's testimony held. He was convicted on multiple counts. A month after the trial, Augusta approved construction of a memorial garden in Jennings' homes, a place with native Georgia flowers, a quiet bench, and a sculpture of two young girls walking hand in hand. But Vanessa didn't wait for that. On the anniversary of their disappearance, she and Janelle returned to where Pike's car had been found. Vanessa knelt and laid Jalisa's purple hoodie on the forest floor. Janelle lit a candle and whispered, "You didn't make it out, but I did. And I'll carry both of us now." That evening, as the sun dropped below the pine trees, mother and daughter sat on the apartment porch with a tray of candles. No flyers, no cameras, just them and a table full of light. When the last candle was lit, they sat together in silence. 20 years had been stolen from them, but that night, quiet, warm, soft with memory, they took something back. Weeks later, a mural appeared near the corner of 12th Street and MLK Boulevard. No one claimed it, no one painted it in daylight, but one morning it was just there. It showed two girls with braids walking through a door of stars. One looked back, one kept walking. At the bottom, in small white paint, were the words, "Still twins, even now." The bond between Janelle and Jalisa Morgan couldn't be broken by 20 years, by distance, or even by death. Love, it turns out, is the one thing no one can steal. What happened to the Morgan twins is a reminder that every missing child matters, regardless of their zip code or the color of their skin. If this story moved you, please share it, subscribe to our channel, and remember, someone's daughter is always worth looking for.